Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was released on November 7th, 2007. It was released on all the modern consoles of the time. COD 4 was developed by Infinity Ward, and they decided to remove COD from the World War II setting that the first 3 previous games were set in. This was a big gamble at the time since the first 3 games were pretty popular. Even with previous success, no one could have guessed how popular this game and this franchise would become. COD 4 ended up being the best-selling game of 2007 and went on to sell more than 10 million copies by June of 2008. In this video, we will be discussing the multiplayer and how it revolutionized the Call of Duty franchise and first-person shooters, the legendary campaign this game produced, and ultimately analyze if this game is good or not still to this day. With that said, let's turn our clocks back to 2007 and get into this video. Where do you begin with something that started a revolutionary moment in gaming history? COD 4 multiplayer is iconic for a plethora of reasons. It was the first COD to predominantly feature the kill streaks we have come to know and love throughout the years. In COD 4 there are only 3 kill streaks and the player doesn't even choose them. They are just permanently implemented for every player. Those kill streaks are the UAV, which you get after 3 kills, the airstrike at 5 kills, and the helicopter at 7 kills. Yeah, it may seem a bit bare bones and stripped down here in 2023, but we have to remember games like this didn't really exist before COD 4. COD 4 set the standard for every Call of Duty and first-person shooter that came out after. This game also featured fan-favorite game modes such as Search and Destroy, Domination, and Team Deathmatch. Of course, this was the first Call of Duty to implement such game modes and feature them similarly to what we know today. The weapons in COD 4 are also some of the most well-known and iconic weapons in all of Call of Duty fandom. Weapons like the M4, G3, AK-47, MP5, AK-7 P90, M40, R700, Desert Eagle, and then the Gold Desert Eagle. All those weapons help curate the incredible experience players had back in the day when they played this game. I sadly have to admit that I was not able to play COD 4 back in its heyday, but I was able to play it a few years after the game's main cycle, and even then it was a lot of fun to play. Modern Warfare Remastered also helped give me a better insight into this incredible game. Even though it's not a one-for-one exact comparison, it's still pretty close. Upon its release, COD 4 also featured 16 multiplayer maps, and what do you know, this game had some incredible maps. This was the first game to feature maps like Bog, Crash, Crossfire, Overgrown, Shipment, Showdown, and Wetwork. It is hard not to say all the maps are great because we are still seeing these maps remastered and redone to this day for the modern Call of Duties. COD 4 also had 4 DLC multiplayer maps, and those maps are Broadcast, Chinatown, Creek, and Kill House. All of these are also really great maps to play on, even if they are lesser known. COD 4 is also the first Call of Duty to introduce the perk system, which features some infamous perks like Frag x3, Martyrdom, and Juggernaut. We also saw the Prestige system for the very first time. Being able to reach level 55 and being faced with the choice of prestiging to another mastery level is still so thought-provoking and engaging. The game also allows players to max out their character when they get to level 10 prestige. Even all these years later, it'd be hard not to appreciate COD 4 and all that it did for the Call of Duty franchise and gaming as a whole. The multiplayer mode helped catapult Call of Duty to stardom, and in doing so, created one of the most iconic multiplayer games the first-person shooter genre has ever seen. I think it is time we move along to another iconic portion of this game, that being the campaign.
50,000 people used to live here. Now it's a ghost town.
Funny enough, the campaign in this game is set in the futuristic year of 2011. COD 4 is the first Call of Duty game where we are introduced to the iconic Captain Price and Soap McTavish. Throughout the playthrough of COD 4, the player actually plays as Soap in this game. That is except for one iconic mission that still gets talked about to this day. That iconic mission is of course All Gillied Up, which is a flashback to 1996 when you play as Captain Price and he is paired with his then commanding officer Captain McMillan. This game is heavily influenced by the political climate of the mid-2000s, but to boil it down, there is a fictional Middle East group led by a guy named Al-Assad. Assad despises the United States since they invaded his home country. All while this is happening, there is a civil war that breaks out in Russia, and that starts causing a lot of issues. Alright, pause real quick here. Every time I bring up Zakhaev, I say Zakov. So I know I'm mispronouncing the name. My bad, it's been a long time since I played this campaign. Alright, let's get back in the video. The leader of the Russian Revolution is a Soviet loyalist and ultra-nationalist named Imran Zakov. Zakov was the one Price and McMillan tried to take out back in 1996, but Price ultimately failed and only blew off his arm. Al-Assad meets his demise, which sets off a chain of events that set off another meeting between Zakov and Captain Price. Long story short, Captain Price and the crew tried to capture Zakov's son, but he refused to surrender. surrender and ended himself before being captured, which of course didn't set well with Zakov, and with saying that, he then took control of the nuclear launch facility. Zakov does set off the nuclear missiles with the intention to wipe out the eastern seaboard of the United States, but luckily the good guys were able to break into the nuclear facility and remotely destroy the missiles over the Atlantic Ocean. This then culminates into the final showdown between Captain Price and his guys and Zakov. It takes place on a bridge, it gets destroyed, everything looks lost, but just when everything looks lost though, Captain Price hands you a pistol, and you put one right in Zakov's old dome, and the game ends right there. The ending of this campaign leaves you feeling satisfied enough, yet curious for what could potentially be coming down the road, since there is bound to be more fallout from the events that transpired. Of course, said fallout is fleshed out in both Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3. Ultimately, I would say this is the most grounded and most socio-political Call of Duty in the Modern Warfare series. Even though most of the campaign is you trying to stop nukes from going off and kicking off World War III, I still would consider it quite grounded. Nonetheless, it is still a blast to play to this day and a thrill ride all the way through. It was a great starting point to the best campaign trilogy in the history of Call of Duty. Now, wrapping up the thrill ride of the campaign, I think it is now time we move on to the conclusion of this video. Even if you're like me and were not able to play this game during its prime, it is still worth checking out today. Just for the campaign alone, it is worth checking out. I guess you can make an argument if you should play the remastered version or not. I really don't think there's a right or wrong answer, so I guess play whichever one you like the most, but I will say the remastered version is graphically better. But I do feel like the legacy for this game is a bit forgotten, since so many great Call of Duty titles followed it, but without a doubt, COD 4 is still great to this day, and deserves to be remembered as one of the best Call of Duty games, and the Call of Duty that sparked off the golden age of COD. With all that said, what are your thoughts and memories of COD 4? Let me know down in the comment section below, and while you're down there, if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel, that'd be greatly appreciated. Until next time guys, everyone have a great day. Thanks for watching.